Ground control to Major Tom.
We've been expecting you, Mr. Boyd.
His is the worst voice you will ever hear.
Will he offer me his teeth?
The Tommy Boyds Show will teach you nothing. Nothing.
Always read the label.
Nothing but iniquity and wickedness.
If you really bug me, then I'll say goodbye.
Morning. The family were asking me if I wanted to go and see the new Steven Spielberg. What's it called? The one about the slave ship where the slaves try to... Amstrad is that horse that won the champion hurdle. Amistad, the one about the slaves who take over a ship and try to sail back to Africa. And you know, one thing leads to another. We were talking about it over the kitchen on the kitchen table, around the kitchen table, over a glass of wine. And somebody said, well, you know, slavery gets so much bad publicity, but was it all bad? And you know, this is the great thing about conversation. We opened up our minds, we opened up another bottle, and we got talking about it. And I thought it was something that you would probably want to think about as well. Free call 0500 10 53 89. We ended up saying, you know, that maybe the time is right to bring back the slave trade. It worked then, it would work now. We didn't need it then as much as we need it now. But by golly, it worked. Free call 0500 10 53 89. Is the time right to bring back the slave trade one way or another? Whether it involves nations enslaving other nations, or simply certain sections of the population within one nation enslaving other sections of the population within that nation. We do it already in Britain to a greater or lesser degree. It could be that the reason it isn't working as an economic idea is simply because we don't go the whole hog. Free call 0500 10 53 89. Is it time to bring back the slave trade, lock, stock and barrel? It worked. The United States is the most powerful nation on earth in every respect, certainly in terms of its economy and the way in which it has utilized its enormous resources. But it was only able to do that simply because the manpower that it needed to exploit those resources of territory and the natural provision of minerals and agricultural potential were unleashed by the manpower, which could only have been provided by the slave trade. So it worked. Setting aside the moral arguments, which we may have to touch on, it worked. And you now have the most powerful nation on earth whose position is owed entirely to slave trade. And we don't have any trouble with that, do we? We haven't asked America to give all their money back to West Africa, have we? And then there is the British Empire, the greatest empire the world has ever seen, the empire on which the sun would never set, although it's getting pretty low over the yardarm. The British Empire owes everything to the British involvement in the slave trade. You had that wonderful golden eternal triangle between Liverpool, the coast of West Africa, and the eastern coast of the United States, the southern United States. And ships would set sail from Liverpool, the home of the slave trade, laden with cotton, spun cotton, which they would then exchange for slaves on the coast of West Africa, who they would then transport to the United States of America, unload the slaves, and collect raw cotton, which they would then sail back to Liverpool for the cotton mills of Lancashire, and then they would load up with more cotton. They made a fortune, the country made a fortune, and the result was the British Empire. So the point is simply this: the slave trade works. It works very, very well. It worked well for practically everybody 200 and 300 years ago. The question is, would it work now? And of course the answer is yes, you know it would. It would work. But would it work for the people involved? Would it work for the people at the coal face, in the cotton fields, or building the railways, or whatever the slaves will be doing in 1998, wherever they're doing what they're doing? Well, a lot of people in this country rather like having their lives organized for them, don't they? A lot of people in this country are frightened of options. They experience mental chaos because they have to make a choice. Well, if you're a slave, if you signed yourself away, and we know that an awful lot of people who spend time in prison are very happy living without having to make any choices for themselves, then you're excused the possibility of suffering from all the insecurities and paranoias that choice can deliver. So, a happy mental state, and possibly even an all-important sense of self-righteousness will attend absolutely everybody who is enslaved. Unemployment would be done away with at a stroke. Homelessness could be swept away. And the aimlessness that an awful lot of middle-class bourgeois people, particularly young people, sense for a large part of their lives, again, will be done away with. If you're a slave, you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing, where you're supposed to be doing it, in whose home you are doing it, and probably from time to time get together to discuss ways of escaping, which of course would be futile. Free call 0500 10 53 89. The slave trade made the USA. It built Britain. It provided many of the young descendants we have today around the world, descendants of slaves, with enormous opportunities. Those people, descendants of slaves, would not be where they are today without the slave trade. That's a big bullet to bite, but it has to be bitten because it's a simple truth. It's a simple truth, isn't it? Free call 0500 10 53 89. And the distribution of different races around the world has led, I am quite certain, to a dramatic reduction in what would otherwise have been an overbearing global racial tension. So the slave trade, it had a lot going for it then, and we are enjoying many of the fruits of the slave trade now. So has the time come to bring it back? What do we think? Free call 0500 10 53 89. I'm Tommy Boyd. This is Talk Radio. There's a good argument for listening. There's a lot to be said for the slave trade. Nigel calls from Cheltenham. You're on Talk Radio. Nigel, good afternoon.
Oh, good afternoon. Well, first I've been asked to make some inane remarks about the quality of your show, but I'll skip those if you don't mind.
No, you'll say those or you're off here.
Oh, very well. I think your show is absolutely wonderful.
No.
Beyond belief.
No, stick to the script.
What was I required to say?
Love you, Tommy, love your show.
I love you and I love your show.
No, love you, Tommy, love your show.
Love you, Tommy, love your show. Does that
Thank
make
you.
you feel better?
Yeah.
About slavery.
Yes, it does. It would make you feel better, wouldn't it?
About slavery. Would slavery make me feel better? Wouldn't make me feel better. Your historical judgments regarding how America became a superpower are pretty worthless. But slavery, I think, is defensible. Aristotle defended it, not on economic grounds, but on moral grounds, on the basis that anyone who was prepared to be a slave...
Can I just say that it's poor debating to offer a proposition without any evidence at all.
The evidence lies in
Yes.
the morality that I'm about to outline.
No, I'm talking about the argument that you left with a parting shot.
Oh, you mean the historical one?
Thank you.
Well, America did not become the world superpower through slavery, but because of the outcome of World Wars I and II, because other comparative powers, or even potentially stronger powers like ourselves and Germany, exhausted themselves. That's why America is the most powerful nation. Not because
That was the final chapter in the book. You should read the whole book.
Which book is this?
The book of American history, of course.
I'm talking about world history, actually. We have to see American power in terms in the world context. Of course,
But history didn't begin in 1914. You're obviously aware of that because you've heard of Aristotle, who we might as well move on to because we're not going to get anywhere with you with the other idea.
No, you're obviously not going to be able to adequately answer that historical argument. We shall move on to Aristotle then. Aristotle's defense of slavery was moral. His idea was that anyone who was prepared to be a slave showed by their preparedness to be one that they deserved to be one. And if it is to be justified, I don't think it needs to be justified in economic grounds. I don't see why everything should be approached in that perspective. That's just a reflection of...
Well, everything isn't, of course. That was a bit lazy of you. Many things are, and it is an important point to bear in mind. It is a consideration, has to be a consideration. You're not an economist, are you?
I'm not an economist,
I'm a historian. Yes, that doesn't show, but keep trying. I don't think so. So you're a supporter of slavery on moral grounds?
If it is to be justified, that's the context in which it should be justified.
You're a supporter of slavery on moral grounds?
I think it could be justified on moral grounds, yes.
Would you like to stand and have the argument with somebody?
By all means.
Marvellous. Free call 0500 10 53 89. My argument was purely economic, but Nigel in Cheltenham believes that slavery can be justified on moral grounds. Free call 0500 10 53 89. Well, in the meantime, we'll talk to Nima, who calls from Surrey. You're on Talk Radio. Nima, good afternoon.
Oh, hi, Tommy.
Nima.
Love you, and I love the show.
Thank you.
You know, I spend my life sitting around trying to find a weak argument that you make, as sad as it may be. That's the case, and I've found another weak argument, as usual. Do you want me to run for it?
Yeah.
Okay. I believe you said an argument could be found to be false if one of the criteria was if one or more of its premises were found to be incorrect or incoherent.
That's close, but carry on.
Well, something along those lines. Now,
Yes.
could you go through your argument about America again? Just set it out for me.
Yes, certainly. The natural resources which the New World had at its disposal required manpower to exploit them. Manpower which they simply could not provide themselves because there weren't enough pioneers in the early 1800s. And they were too busy homesteading to pick cotton and build railways. So they had to export, or they had to acquire, some 13 or 15, depending on which record you believe, million, fit mainly men, but also women, obviously, so that they could, regenerate in order to do those jobs at a very low overhead. Preferably no wage bill at all, just the odd bowl of gruel.
Right. Tommy, I have great respect for you as a historian, as a human being.
Thank you. You ain't heard nothing yet.
But you are wrong.
Because
from what little study of America I've done, and it's not a great deal, it's quite apparent that the southern states, which used slavery, were the states whose economy was in the worst condition. Because it was the northern states who industrialized and had a free market and a free workforce.
It's a reasonable point, but
far better.
Yeah, it could be a reasonable point. The only reason it falls down is just the chronology of the thing. Because the industrialization of the North, which didn't actually provide it with a stronger economic base than the South, but they certainly were on the march come the middle 1860s, by which time, of course, slavery was well on the way to being abolished, as you know.
You are talking crap, Tommy.
Crap? Crap? What if I said that?
If you can't win the argument, you'll make it up. You always do.
What do you mean making it up? When was the American Civil War, which is what you're talking about, presumably?
I'm not talking about the Civil War. All I'm talking about is whether economically slavery made the South stronger. The South used slavery, the North didn't.
I'm not talking about America as a North or a Southern country. They've been unified for a long, long time.
I'm sorry, no. What we're talking about is slavery.
Yes.
Slavery was used in the South of America. That is the place where the economy was weakest.
In what
It was not used in the North. And
in what respect? Was it the weakest?
All right, then fine. The southern economies relied on cotton plantations and other plantations which required slave labor.
Yes.
Right. That meant that they did not develop the actual industry. They only relied on one or two products, like cotton. While the North industrialized and had a free workforce and did not use slavery, and they were the ones who were more successful.
Well, they had a very successful livestock industry.
They lost the Civil War because of their economy to a great extent. That may not be accurate. Yeah?
No, that isn't. Nor is it accurate to say that the American Civil War was about the slave trade. It simply wasn't. It was about a great many more things than that.
No,
you must broaden your information base.
Well, I don't think.
How many times have you seen Gone with the Wind?
I don't think
that what you're labeling this?
That's it. You're being presumptuous.
Yeah, well,
I do not think for a moment that the American Civil War was over the slave trade.
Look, I won't be presumptuous if you will be substantial.
All right, then, look, you've cited America as an example to show that the slavery worked as far as economics go. And I've come up with a counterexample telling you that in the South of America, which is where slavery was used, the economy was weaker.
But no evidence.
Well, look, I'm sorry, if you read the books, it's obvious. What do you want me to do?
No, I'm sorry, but it's a well-known fact, doesn't work on the show. This is not taxi driver time. Evidence, please, now. Numbers.
You want to hear numbers, right?
Yes.
Let's say I give you numbers, yeah?
Yes.
Then what will you say? How do I know those numbers are correct?
Well, you just give me them, and then we'll see if I can.
Then what will you say after that? All right.
I will send you £100 for every substantiated piece of information you can give me now.
I don't want your money. Okay?
You can't do it.
I want to get to the truth.
Hot air.
As usual, you're a great orator.
Hot air.
You're actually never interested in the truth. You're never interested in the truth.
The only orator left.
I'm sorry. At least you admit, maybe you're not as bad as I thought. At least you admit you're an orator and a sophist.
I sure am a sophist, pal.
Right, there we go.
I wouldn't be anything else.
That is the lowest profession, you realise.
And yet one to which you only aspire.
That may be the case. Good justification. Good choice.
Free call 0500 10 53 89. That was Nima. We're still waiting for a caller who would be prepared to take on Nigel, who believes that slavery should be reintroduced. The slave trade should be introduced. Let's remind ourselves what slavery is. Slavery is not the security guard who works for 98 hours a week for 100 quid before stoppages, because he has a choice in the matter. Slavery is when you quite simply hand over voluntarily or have it taken from you every single one of your freedoms. And you belong to somebody else. Much as you own that chair, if the slave trade were introduced, you would either own a human being or be owned by another human being, in law. So that if somebody liberated them, you could take them to court and prosecute them for theft. That's what we're talking about. That's how it was 150 years ago, not long ago. And that's what we're suggesting maybe should be reintroduced, because it worked then. Not just for the slave owners, but also for some of the people who made the trip. Oh, yeah. And I think it would work for both parties again. Nigel thinks so. He thinks it should be reintroduced on moral grounds. Free call 0500 10 53 89. I'm Tommy Boyd. This is Talk Radio. There's a good argument for listening.
Talk Radio, the conversation of the nation.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Wouldn't be a bad idea, would it, if we brought slavery back? Nigel calls from Bradford. You're on Talk Radio. Nigel, good afternoon.
Hello there, Tommy. Love
Nigel.
your show. Love you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say, I think slavery could be a good idea if you introduce slavery and then you take away the poverty and starvation of the third world, basically.
Seriously?
Sorry?
Seriously?
Well, if you actually introduced slavery
Yes.
and you brought the people over to either here or America and say in 100 years' time as well, they could be introduced to the society.
So there wouldn't have been any
Any
famine in
country.
Ethiopia if there hadn't been anybody in Ethiopia to starve, because
Well-
they were all growing things in, well, say, South or North America.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Yeah,
when
no.
the slave trade, I'm just an amateur historian, you understand?
Yeah.
If, as far as I can remember my reading, is that during the slave trade, a lot of slaves went on to America and actually lived a better life than they did in their own country. And now they're like part of the United States.
They are an integral part of the United States, and if it hadn't been for the slave trade, some of the great people of this century would never, I suspect, have come to prominence, from Muhammad Ali down. Of course, Martin Luther King wouldn't have come to prominence because he wouldn't have had to. But let's leave the moral argument on the shelf, largely, unless you'd like to challenge Nigel from Cheltenham, who is waiting on his stool in the blue corner. He thinks that slavery could and should be reintroduced on moral grounds. Garfield calls now from Birmingham. You're on Talk Radio, Garfield.
Love you, Tommy. Love the show, mate.
Thank you.
Tommy, I think it's a great idea, mate. But first of all, I want to thank you for actually acknowledging how much Britain and America has benefited from this slave trade. But I think it's a great idea, Tommy, actually bringing back this slave trade. But I was wondering this time if we could actually do it where the slave masters are black and the slaves are white. If we could just try it this time, this way. What do you think, Tom?
Well, I'm not sure whether it will be done along racial lines
Well,
in the 21st
I don't know, Tom. I
century.
wouldn't mind.
Well, that's just a bit of revenge.
No, I don't know, Tom. Not really. I just think that we probably could build...
Two wrongs don't make a right, Garfield.
Well, I don't know, Tom. I don't know. We could try it.
Yes, we could try. It'll be a certain symmetry about it, wouldn't there?
Yeah, I think so. And then you probably could have great fighters like...
White men fighting for their freedom.
Yeah, Muhammad Ali. You could have a white version of him.
White men.
Yeah, you could have a white version of Bob Marley.
Yeah,
you could
but
have
then
a white
you see,
version of Martin Luther King.
but hold your horses. There's a downside to this, because then you get a black Ku Klux Klan.
Really?
Well, think it through, wouldn't you?
Yes, I'm not too
Or
keen
would
on
you?
them.
No,
I wouldn't want to see a black version, but I still wouldn't mind
Why?
just trying it though, Tommy.
Yeah, but, you've got to look at this from every angle. It's an interesting suggestion, Garfield. I'm grateful for your contribution.
Okay.
Good weekend.
Right, thanks, Tom.
Phil calls from London. You're on Talk Radio. Phil, good afternoon.
Yeah, Tommy. I've been commanded by your slave driver woman to say I adore you and I adore your show.
Well, thank you.
Right. Of course, the thing about slavery is that would you and your family be prepared to volunteer to have a go this time round?
I think so.
Because, I mean, the thing you said about the security guard on whatever an hour, and he's got a choice. Well, the choice he's got, the way things are sorted out in the past 20 years, is he's got a choice between one spiv and another spiv. It's like the old dog's chance. You've got a dog's chance or no chance. So that is basically slavery worked for whoever it worked for. But the people it didn't work for are the ones that were the slaves. So, I mean, in a way, although you say they were looked after to a degree, well, I mean, you can talk about battery ends. They're looked after to a degree, aren't they? It's no life, though, is it? So, I mean, conflict is the only true state of affairs between mankind, because they haven't got the brains to do anything more than conflict. In that case, let's get to it. Same old thing, innit?
I'm coming round to the idea that mankind is brainless.
Well, of course he is, because he's never arrived at a consensus. All he can do is hit each other over the head like cavemen. That's all he has done.
I'm talking about standing here listening to you leads me to the notion that mankind's brainless.
Well, there you
Now,
are. You
come
proved
on,
my
Phil.
point. You proved my point, haven't you?
Which was what?
Well, that you
Are you a taxi driver?
That you say I'm brainless, I say you're brainless, so we've come to the same conclusion, haven't we? That is it, conflict, mate. That is the natural state of affairs. I say get to it, have it out,
Yes,
right?
yes. Okay, it's a very, very interesting peroration. And your point would be...
Would you volunteer for slavery?
Oh, right, and I did say yes.
What about battery ends?
No, I'm not a chicken.
No, well, how do you think people who locked up just enough, fed enough to produce whatever, ain't they battery ends?
This is the vegetarian hour. We do that on Tuesday.
Battery men.
We're talking about slaves.
Yeah, battery men. You know, cotton to it, Tommy.
Yes.
You've got the brains for that.
Yes, yes. No, I think slavery is a good idea, and yes, I would volunteer for it.
You'd like to be a battery man, would you?
No, a slave.
Well, same thing, innit?
No, I'd like to be a slave.
What's the good point of that? What's the upside of being a slave?
Well, the upside of being a slave, it seems to me, first of all, Phil, a lot of the things that bring about the anxieties which you're displaying at the moment.
Anxiety is a natural state.
No.
You're alive. If you're anxious, you're alive.
No. The anxieties, the hyper-anxieties.
Soporific ain't a natural state.
No, it isn't, but it's one that we try to achieve.
No, you don't.
Yes, you do.
Well, you achieve it if you want. Every individual can achieve what they want.
I don't think many individuals think about what they're trying to achieve. You, for example, what are you trying to achieve? What good are you going to be?
Get to tomorrow, that's what my achievement is.
Get to tomorrow, that is a grave filler's philosophy.
Well, there you are.
No, wake up.
Well, go on then, you tell me yours.
To attain what you just said nobody had tried to attain.
So listen, you end up being the man on the mountain musing, right?
No.
Sitting there, just musing.
No.
Well, what do you do then?
No. Well, first of all, you learn to listen.
Go on.
Carefully.
Dead air, Tommy, dead air. It's deadly in your profession.
No, it isn't actually. It's funny how little you know.
Well, go on then, I'm listening.
Well, I've got so much to tell you.
I've got all afternoon, mate.
Yeah, I haven't.
Well, tell us something then. You haven't said nothing.
I'm using parable.
Parable then?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm using the technique that Confucius perfected.
Yeah, I'm confused, mate.
And you were when you came on.
And we both are now, aren't we?
Not me.
You are, mate.
I've never been confused.
You certainly have. Because by admitting that you're not, it shows that you are. Go on, Tommy.
I bet you're a lot of fun in the
Tell me
pub,
why it's
aren't
bad to be anxious.
I bet you
Tell me
are.
why it's bad to be anxious.
I didn't say it was bad to be anxious.
Well,
I said that you were anxious.
That's right. And what of it?
It's bad.
No, it ain't.
It is.
It's part of life. Listen, if you're not alert, you could be had by anyone. You've got to be alert. Got to be full of it.
You see, you're not only anxious, you're paranoid.
Whatever.
No, paranoid.
Well, so what? You've never been paranoid?
No.
You haven't?
Not paranoid.
Well, you haven't lived, mate.
You like to be paranoid.
Listen, you've got emotions ranging from A to Z. You're not using them. You're stuck in the middle.
I've tried them all, except paranoia.
Why?
Are you recommending mental illness?
Listen, if you haven't been in a position where your life...
Have you seen... I'm going to see if you're any good at conversation. Have you seen... This is now a conversation, okay? Can you do conversation?
Try me.
I don't think you can you?
Try me.
No, I don't think you can, because I'm now having conversation.
Well,
and when it's a
I'm not
conversation...
getting much out of you, Tommy.
No, when it's a conversation, you don't say, try me! You go, okay, let's have a conversation. Can you do that?
Right, I'm conversing very quietly.
No, you're not.
And measured.
No, you're not.
I'm not.
You're not talking. You're not conversing.
Tommy, I know as much about conversation as what you do.
Well, that sentence alone could be torn to pieces, Phil.
Well, your sentence could also be torn to pieces.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Right, slavery, anxiety, knock them down.
Yes, that wasn't a sentence of mine, was it?
No.
Really?
Well, go on then.
No.
Well,
Okay.
come out with it. You still haven't told me nothing. I've been listening. There's been a lot of dead air, but I still haven't heard any sense.
No. Okay, I was going to have a conversation with you, because we touched on mental illness.
Yeah.
Have you seen that poster that's up that says, not everybody who has a mental illness is mentally ill? Have you seen that poster in the station?
Well, mental illness only exists in law. You know that, don't you?
No, you
It
can't
doesn't
do it,
exist
can
in
you? No,
psychiatric
you can't
terms.
do it. You can't engage, can you?
Well, we're trying to sort of definitions.
No, we're trying to have a conversation, trying to engage.
Well, go on then, say something.
Without engaging. You know, when the slavers set
Well,
off...
why aren't you engaging with me, Tommy?
When the slavers set off... People like this exist, listener, and they've got votes, and they probably were responsible for slavery because they cannot actually, for one moment, engage with the idea that another human being is another human being.
Well,
we're just objects, pieces
You
of
told
furniture.
me I'm not entitled to be anxious.
I don't think you're entitled to live.
Wait a minute.
You're useless. You're a complete waste of a human
I'm a
skin.
reflection of you, Tommy.
I'm
a reflection of you.
You've got the mind of a rocking horse.
I'm a reflection of you.
You're a very dangerous man.
You've told me, well, I hope so. I'm a danger to you, then I'm doing all right, ain't I?
Do you know, we're categorising callers in this hour of the programme
I'm categorising you.
according to what sort of fish they are.
Well, who are you to categorise anyone?
We've got you down as a goldfish.
Well, what are you then?
Me?
A shark.
A marlin.
A shark.
A marlin.
So, what's that make us?
You don't know much about fish.
Well, you don't know much about what you're talking about.
Phil, it would have been a good conversation and it would have been a good call if you'd managed to engage at any point during it. Well, I'm afraid I have to ask you never to call the show again and not to listen anymore.
I've already done so, mate, and already will again.
Well, please don't.
Well, why not?
Because it's very painful listening to you.
Well, it's painful listening to you.
Well, don't listen to me then.
I like a bit of pain.
Fuck off.
Why can't I be a masochist?
Go down the dial.
Why can't I be a masochist?
Get down another radio station. Please leave us alone
Tommy,
here.
get a life.
Leave us alone here. We don't want reminding that there are people like you
Tommy,
in the world.
Tune out, turn off, get a life.
Look at him. God.
Tommy, you're getting exasperated, mate.
It's just an act.
What kind of an act?
Are you putting this on?
Listen, the best actors in the world are the English. Everyone knows that.
Are you really like this?
Absolutely. You've got to be an act. An act is everything.
What do you do for a living, Philip?
I'll talk to you, Tom.
No, but what do they pay you to do?
I don't get paid for nothing.
Are you unemployed?
I do anything and everything.
But what is that?
For money. Well, that's the monetarist utilitarian world we're in, isn't it? Do anything for money.
I'm changing my mind. I think we should devote an entire hour to you.
I'm on a wager to see how long I can last with you, and I'm doing all right, ain't I? So I'm earning now. Tommy, I'm one of the longest calls ever. Is that right?
No.
I certainly am.
No, you're not.
I was told if I could last more than 3 minutes, I'd be doing all right. Right, so I'm on an earner now.
Yeah.
All right, Tom?
How much are you on?
Never you mind. I'm doing all right.
No, you see, you're making that up as well.
Well, Tommy, the whole thing is an act. Haven't you sussed that?
It is a lovely call.
Ain't it an act?
Well, I don't know. I'm going to have to let you go because I'm starting to get a bit...
You're intrigued, aren't you, Tom?
No.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm bored.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm bored.
Are you?
I'm bored with you because you haven't got any...
Well, you haven't come out with why haven't I got the right to be anxious?
I'm bored with the fact that you don't have any different changes of speed. That's the trouble.
What do you mean change of speed?
Well, you know, you don't have any fast and slow. You don't have any soft and
I went
heavy.
quiet for you, Tom, and you didn't come out with nothing.
No, that was silence.
I went quiet for you, didn't come out with nothing.
That was just silence.
Well, I was listening, I couldn't hear nothing.
No, but that was your silence.
Hey?
That was your silence.
Well, it was both, because you had the chance.
Have you ever had treatment of any kind?
Absolutely,
Seriously?
all the time.
Yeah.
I'm being treated by life itself.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's been a revelation talking to you.
Tommy, slavery.
And I would,
for it.
yeah, but I would be the first to volunteer.
Yeah.
But what was interesting? Oh no, you better go. Yeah, you've got to go, Phil. Lovely talking to you. Yeah, lovely talking
well
to you.
done, Tom.
Yeah.
Keep up the good work, mate.
And you, love you, Phil.
Right.
Love your show.
I adore you, Tom.
I know you do.
Right.
Oh, you wish you were me, don't you?
Nah, not really.
Yes, you do.
Well, I wish I was everyone, because then you've really lived, haven't you?
Well, now, Phil, that's the first piece of wisdom that you come out with that may be remotely original.
I'm not here for wisdom, I'm here for opinion.
No, you're not. You are here for wisdom. That's why you listen to this show.
Hold on a minute. Opinion is what life is all about.
No, sir. Opinion you get anywhere and everywhere.
Well, that's
wisdom.
why. That's what Talksport radio's about, isn't it?
No, sir. No, it isn't.
You mean to tell me that all day, every day for 24 hours, you're getting wisdom on Talk Radio?
No, I didn't say that.
Well, it's opinion, isn't it?
It's just that you don't let me finish sentences, so you never know what somebody else is saying.
Go on, Tom, I'll give you a chance.
Between 2 till 4, it's wisdom, philosophy,
right.
the stuff of life.
And what about the Tommy Boyds show?
Right, now you're letting yourself down, aren't you?
Nah,
that wasn't a
just
good
pulling
one.
your legs, Tom. I'm only teasing.
No, that one didn't work.
I'm only teasing,
You've lost
Tom.
it now.
You're doing all right.
I know.
Right?
I know that.
Well, anyway, the old meter's ticking over. I'm doing all right, ain't I?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay,
well, it was a very long rally, Phil.
Stay alert, stay anxious,
Yeah.
man, and you're living.
Yeah, I know.
Keep alert, mate. We need more of them.
I knew he was going to say that. He was running out of steam. As soon as he said alert, could you see him going into saying, be alert, we need more alert? I knew he was going to ruin it. Corker, archive that. I don't know what it was all about. Where were we anyway? Well, we were allegedly talking about slavery. Wondering whether it would be a good idea to bring it back. Thank you, Phil. Yeah, no, thank you, Phil. Let's talk to Tom, who calls from Brighton. You're on Talk Radio. Tom, good afternoon.
Hello, Tom.
Sorry about that.
Lovely show.
Oh, thank you.
I think that bloke you just talked to is like talking to someone through 6 teeth of glass, isn't it, really?
Yes.
Anyway, I think your proposition is brilliant, mate, and I want to suggest some things that would that help you carry it out. I mean, I don't usually feel that I'm like sort of being cynical here, picking on sections of society, but I think you've got to get slaves from somewhere. When I thought of perhaps we could start by making laws very, very tough, and people who fall out of line, instead of sending them to prison, we send them off to be slaves. So, I mean, that would wipe out the prison population, wouldn't need prisons anymore.
No.
Then to draw in more slaves, perhaps we could then pick on the families of those who
Transgressed.
Who's transgressed. Then that could draw more people in. I mean, I'm not looking... I think there's a fella before who wanted to look at it as a black and white issue. I don't think it's worth looking at a black and white issue because we have to look at, today's world. We're on all equality. And I think doing it this way, it wouldn't be picking on...
I don't think life in the plantation was all that bad. Unless you're unlucky and you've got a bad landowner. The rest of the time, you're out in the open air, the weather was fine, the work was steady and pretty straightforward.
I think they made the best of it, didn't they?
3 square meals a day.
Yeah.
The social life was obviously good because it was expected that they would have the largest possible family.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, you hear all the plantation songs.
It was tiring, but what isn't tiring?
Well, life is tiring, isn't it? And, when you're put into a situation, I think you make the best of it. You just get on with it. Yeah, that's my view, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Very much indeed. 340 1053 89. The wonderful hour from 3 until 4, but between now and 3 o'clock, we continue the debate on whether the time has arrived for us to consider bringing back the slave trade. The number 500 1053 89. And in a couple of minutes, a very unexpected treat. I'm Tommy Boyd, this is Talk Radio. We return to the debate over the future of the slave trade on planet Earth as we approach the next century, and it is an option and it has to be considered. A brief piece of drama for you. To create in your own mind, using that thing which radio does so well, which is mental pictures, some idea of what slavery may well have been like 200 years ago in one of the southern states of the United States of America. Feel yourself enjoying a warm, generous sun on your back. Find yourself hearing the happy laughter and harmonious sing-songs of hundreds of people free in a field, looking forward only to their lives, their loves, and their next meal break. A huge, mighty river meanders gently in the distance, and to draw from its cool, you move a little closer to that river and the glades that shelter on its banks. And in one of those glades, you find yourself in the company of a wise old man from Africa who begins to sing his deep and wonderful song.
Oh, my river, that old my river, it just keeps rolling along. You and me, we sweat and strain, body all aching and racked with pain. Lift that barge, coat that bale, we get a little drunk and we ends in jail. I get weary and sick of trying. I'm tired of living and scared of dying. But old man river, he just keeps rolling along.
What a wonderful culture. What a wonderful start in the life of a young and soon-to-be wonderful and prosperous nation, delivered thanks to people like that. And an economic policy which was known as the slave trade, which worked then and could work now. 340 1053 89. Jeff calls from Birmingham. You're on Talk Radio. Jeff, good afternoon.
Yeah, lovely, Tommy, lovely show.
Thank you.
Just a point, this whole argument about slavery, one point that nobody seems to have mentioned yet, which I think is quite relevant, is what the African slaves who were sent to America benefited from, or at least the descendants have, is that the slave trade has succeeded where Hitler failed. I.e., they managed to, through selective breeding, to breed the world's first super race of people, if you want to look at it like that. You've only got to look at things like the Olympics, at the American black athletes.
Boxing.
The bigger, faster, stronger.
American football, baseball.
Exactly.
Is dominated by people whose great-great-great-great-grandparents were spirited away from the west coast of Africa. It's a powerful point, Jeff.
Well, the old American dream, I mean, if you look at the top earners in America, I think the top three are Bill Cosby, Oprah Winfrey and Michael Jackson.
You know, in entertainment you're referring to, of course, because
Entertainment, yeah.
Bill Gates isn't black, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And he's up there as well. Jeff, thanks for your call.
Thank you.
Free call 0500 1053 89. I'm Tommy Boyd. This is Talk Radio. There's a good argument for listening.
100 1053 89.
Emma has called the programme from Harrow. You're on Talk Radio, Emma.
Hi.
Good afternoon.
Normally love you, Tommy. Normally love your show.
Thank you.
I know that you're not racist because I've listened to you before, but I can't believe you're coming out with this. I mean, the fact with slavery, I mean, this is the trouble with living in the past in the sense that if it was so good, the black nation wouldn't have fought so damn hard to free themselves. If they were having such an idealistic, wonderful time, why the hell did they try so hard to liberate themselves and to have freedom? You know, I mean, it obviously wasn't that good, was it?
To be honest with you, they didn't really try that hard.
Well, I mean, I'm not black. I wasn't there. I don't know. I only know from what, probably the same kind of things that you've read, etc. But I certainly know that I would think, anyway, that most black people listening to this would probably be, I would think, quite offended.
No, most black people listening to this will have to be in part grateful to the slave trade.
Do you think?
Well, obviously, because if they're listening to this...
I wouldn't like to be a slave,
Hang on, hear the argument, because it holds bucketfuls of water. They're in this country as a choice. In all probability, a great many black people listening to this programme, and this is the people you're referring to, I think, are in this country as a result of the slave trade, which took their forebears, probably to the Caribbean. This is the kind of black person you're talking about, isn't it?
Mm.
Yes. Okay, you're talking about...
Well, I mean, I've got the picture
not me.
In my head that you painted about what I presume was, in the old Carolina and that kind of thing.
Yes.
I just think the trouble is, in this day and age, to kind of have this kind of, all great for freedom of speech, but to have this kind of conversation about slavery, I just think it is slightly dangerous, because there are some pretty deranged people out there that will think, oh yeah, great,
No, you can't start up slavery on your own.
Well, no, but I mean, if you start talking about it, sooner or later people are going to start listening, aren't they?
The will
thinking
of the
that you've
people,
got a valid point and that we should have slaves. And...
Well, if it's the will of the people, that's democracy.
But then but then that's utilitarianism, isn't it?
No, democracy.
That's the will of the greater over the will of the few. And I mean, I'm sure.
I don't think there's anything that you shouldn't talk about.
Well, I don't know.
You're somebody who believes that there are an awful lot of horrible people out there who might start doing terrible things.
But don't you agree, though, that some people... Don't you agree that some people, though, should not be given freedom of speech?
No.
Because there are certain topics that I wouldn't... I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to hear Myra Hindley on the radio going on about how great she feels about what she's done. I mean,
I would very much welcome the opportunity to have Myra Hindley's views from Myra Hindley.
No,
yes,
you wouldn't.
Oh, for goodness sake. Oh, for goodness sake.
No.
For goodness sake, of course.
Why give her I wouldn't want her to have the publicity. But anyway, that's a different subject.
Oh, Emma, you almost... I almost don't want to hear you say love your show. Now, come and join us up here. There's nothing to be afraid of, hearing what somebody has to say.
Yeah, but it's just... I mean, like I say, I'm not black, but I just can't believe that people would not feel offended.
Who taught you that you know best?
Same person that taught you. Evidently.
Who was that?
Well, I don't know. You tell me.
I'm not acting as though I know best. I want to know...
But then neither am I.
Yes, you are. Because you're saying...
I'm not, actually.
Yes?
I'm just giving my view. No. And like I say, you're entitled to yours. And I know that you're not a racist, because I've heard you argue the case before. But my view is that I just find it very shocking.
The difference between us is that I give everybody the benefit of the doubt and extend my trust to them until they abuse it, whereas you believe that there are people who necessarily don't deserve that privilege at all.
That's right,
Even though you don't quite know...
Very few people, I believe, do not deserve that. For example, people that kill children do not deserve...
Yeah, this is muddled. We're not talking about that.
Well, I mean, certain people, like I can't remember his name, but one of your previous callers said about people in prison, maybe they should be slaves, etc.
Yeah, I don't know what this has got to do with what we're actually talking about here, which is actually, Emma, the right to talk about everything.
That's
my right, and I'm doing it.
That's what we got to after the initial.
Not too keen on people ringing up saying you mustn't talk about this.
Well, I didn't say you mustn't.
Because you don't know very much about it. You probably know more about it if more people had talked about it.
I don't think so. I don't think that I would like to hear people say that a bad thing should be a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't, but if I had had the personal experience myself of being a slave, I could probably talk more, in depth about it, so I'm sure you could.
Yeah, true enough. Thank you. Free call 0500 1053. I start with Roots by Alex Haley, Emma. Roots by Alex Haley. contains the best opening passage of any 20th century novel. And that's a good introduction to what slavery was really like. But it worked then, it could work again. It's worth talking about. Look, let's get one thing straight, surely. Everything's worth talking about, isn't it? You don't have to do anything about it. You don't have to think anything about it. Different. Or you might do. But everything can be talked about. Everything should be talked about. Everything. Greg calls from Somerset. Greg, you're on Talk Radio.
Hi, I love your company, love your show. I think that was what I was told to say.
Well, you almost got it right. How old are you?
I'm 13.
Ah, you must go to a very good school.
Thank you very much.
That's the level of it, by the way, Greg, and I'm sure you can sustain it.
No. Okay, I just wanted to say slavery is a really bad thing. Because, I mean, slavery does not go with democracy. And a democracy is what we've got. But if we lost that in democracy, you know, I mean, you said slavery worked.
Well, it did.
But it didn't. If it did work, then we'd still have it now.
Well, that's
it
what
would
I'm
never have
suggesting.
stopped.
That's what I'm suggesting. Maybe we should try it again. You have one or two well-meaning do-gooders like... Have you heard of William Wilberforce?
No.
No. Oh, well, he abolished slavery. I would have thought he'd have been one of
Good
your
for
heroes.
him.
Right. Well, I'm glad to help with your education. What's the fee?
What?
Well, you pay other people to teach you, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, how much do I get for that, then?
You don't.
Oh. That's not very democratic.
Really?
Free market, isn't it, really? Which is what the slave trade is, Greg. Free market.
It isn't. I mean, in slavery, you are holding people against their will.
Yes?
To work for you.
That's a bit like school, isn't it?
No.
Yes?
I like school.
But you couldn't get up and walk out if you wanted to.
Actually, I could.
Well, you should.
Why? I like it.
Well, you should see what it feels like. We should try everything once. Good this, isn't it? Having a Barney. Enjoy it?
Yeah.
Nice, isn't it? Can you argue with many adults like this? Sort of,
Yeah.
you know, good. No, I mean, do they let you? Can you argue with your teachers like this?
Yeah.
Good. Very good. God, you do go to a good school, don't you?
Yeah.
And you finish lunchtimes on Fridays.
No, we've broken up for the Easter holidays.
Yeah, I know, but state schools don't break up till about 3 in the afternoon, mate.
I know, it's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah. It is. What was I going to ask you? That last lady that I was talking about, talking to freedom of, about the freedom of, talking to about freedom of speech.
Yeah.
Do you agree with me that everything can and should, if the time is right, be talked about?
Yeah.
You do.
It widens people's perspective.
It can't do anything but, can it?
No.
No.
Well, but if you give a biased view on it, it can alter people's opinions. But I reckon it should be talked about.
But it's difficult not to be biased, isn't it? Because all you've got to go on is your own observations, experience, and so on and so forth. Sometimes the biased views are more interesting. Sometimes it's worth biasing your views a little bit.
Well, yeah, they're interesting, but they don't give a completely honest report.
Well, it's difficult to be honest, isn't it? Because you can't be sure what's absolutely true.
True.
Yeah, that was true. Nice talking to you.
Okay, nice talking to you too.
Have a good Easter.
I will, thank you, and you.
Yeah. Isn't it funny people wish themselves Happy Easter? This festival which commemorates a man being nailed to a tree. Happy Easter? Let's move on. Between 3 and 4 on the show, it's the wonderful hour, and the switchboard is open now. Free call 0500 10 53 89. I'm Tommy Boyd. This is Talk Radio. There's a good argument for listening.
Don't forget to subscribe and like. Comment too if you wish. Even slap your legs and make a purchase from Ann Summers. But don't do nothing.